Why all that ink, old man? Ran out of notebooks, or just lost too many bets at shore? The comment didn't land lightly. It drifted across the briefing room like a pressure front before a thunderstorm, charged, invisible, instantly altering the atmosphere. It came from the rear row, delivered with casual bravado by Enan Miller, 23, perfectly built, recent top graduate from BUD/S. He wore confidence like body armor, arms crossed, biceps straining against the seams, posture relaxed. Around him sat 20 other elite trainees, fresh, fearless, convinced they were the next evolution of warrior. At the front of the tiered room stood Elias, 60 years old, invited as a guest instructor. He didn't look like one. His hair was thin and more silver than gray. His face bore the roadmap of decades lived under sun, wind, and gunfire, creased lines deep around the eyes and jaw. He wore only a plain black t-shirt, intentionally unassuming. But what caught attention were his arms. Not the muscle, but the ink. Dark, messy, aged tattoos running chaotically across both forearms. Nothing polished. No stylized artwork. Just the kind of ink etched into skin under duress. To Miller, he looked like a relic. Drifter. A biker stepping onto the wrong compound. He was about to learn that the deadliest predators in the deepest currents don't broadcast their danger. They wait still and quiet until the moment to strike. Clapperboard if you believe wisdom is earned through blood. If you honor the warriors who walked the path before us, hit like now and type respect in the comments. Let's see who truly understands the cost of freedom. The Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado was built for precision. The auditorium's air conditioning hummed at a constant 68 degrees Fahrenheit, countering the relentlessness of the California heat. Large screens displayed satellite maps, surveillance recon, and tactical overlays. Etched above the door were the words etched into every candidate's mind. The only easy day was yesterday. These men were the new breed. They trained with robotics, ballistic algorithms, and advanced battlefield comms. They believed themselves invincible. Then Elias walked in. No digital tablet. No laser pointer. No presentation slides. Just a paper cup of cheap coffee and a notebook that looked like it had been submerged in seawater and sun-dried multiple times. He limped, barely perceptible, but present. He set the coffee on the podium, stood still, and silently scanned the room for an entire minute. His eyes were slate. Not hard, not soft, just unreadable. That was when Miller spoke. The recruits expected a battle-hardened operator, fresh off mission, tactical beard, stories of covert takedowns. Instead, they saw what looked like a retired mechanic. Miller's remark was a test shot, an early dominance move to break the silence. A few trainees chuckled. A subtle wave of agreement. The tattoos weren't pretty. They looked like spontaneous ink, jagged lines, rough shapes, coordinates, and symbols that seemed carved in agony rather than artistry. Elias didn't react. Not a twitch. He lifted the cup, took a slow sip, placed it back down, then turned his gaze fully onto Miller. The silence stretched beyond comfort. The brief laughter died. "Curious about the ink, are you?" he finally said. His voice was soft, like tires crunching on gravel. Miller leaned back confidently. "Just asking. Normally we keep things clean. That looks like disorder. Like someone scribbled without direction." Elias gave a single nod, then stepped away from the podium. He walked slowly through the central aisle. With every footstep forward, the men could see more. The texture beneath the ink, scars, ridged tissue, burn markings masked beneath pigment. "Chaotic," he repeated. "Good word. War is chaos. You boys train for structure, for the grid. But the plan is always the first casualty in combat." He stopped directly in front of Miller. For a breath, their eyes locked. Miller's confidence faltered, just a crack. Elias's eyes held no heat, only complete, calm focus. The kind seen in sharks before the strike. You asked why so many. He pulled his left arm forward, exposing a jagged black pattern winding down his forearm. "Looks like a mistake. Like a bad tattoo done in a basement. Want to know what it is?" Miller nodded slightly. "Sure. What is it?" "A river," Elias said. "A moment in time." He paused, then continued, not like storytelling. More like reading a classified report. 1989. Operation just cause. Panama. Room stilled. Faulty intel. They expected minimal resistance at Pitala airstrip. Instead, they walked into a full kill zone, multiple heavy machine gun nests firing instantly. His swim buddy took a round to the femoral artery in the first engagement. Elias dragged him behind a private aircraft's landing gear. Gunfire never relented. 4 hours of unbroken suppression. I tattooed this 3 days later, he said calmly. It follows the flow of Joey's blood across the tarmac. Serves as a reminder that strategies fail. When they do, you don't panic. You choke down fear. You hold your position. Silence deepened. The AC seemed louder. Elias lifted his right sleeve now. 3 uneven stars. Rough edges blunt. Think these are ranks or decoration? No one spoke. 1993, Mogadishu. The room reacted quietly. They all knew the history. Few ever met someone who'd walked through it. We were supposed to support only. When the helicopters went down, everything changed. Full surround. No resupply. No escape. We ran out of water and nearly out of blood. He tapped the stars. 3 men in my unit didn't survive the exfil. I inked these to cover shrapnel wounds I took pulling a Ranger from a burning Humvee. Every time I lift something heavy, the scar tissue tears. That pain tells me I'm still here. And they're not. He stepped back to address all. The new generation leaned closer. Not a hint of arrogance left. You look at me and see an old man, he said, voice growing just slightly firmer. Gray hair, faded ink. You ask why I'm marked. He paused. Let the silence return. Because I've returned home more times than most get to try. Each tattoo is a receipt. A record of a life I lived, a death I avoided, or a brother I helped lay to rest. Every recruit went still. Even breath seemed staggered. He pointed to his wrist. Afghanistan. 2002 Taku Mountains. Oxygen thin enough to cut. No drones. No SATCOM. Just 6 of us, the cold and the dark. We were isolated 12 days. Food gone by day 4. We stayed alive on snow and rage. This shape is Orion. Drew it over the spot. I waited unmoving for 48 hours, watching for a sniper's mistake. He gave me one. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm marked. Elias slowly lowered his sleeve. Eyes returned to Miller. You've got clean skin, clear eyes, strength. You know, theory. But you do not know the weight yet. Miller lowered his head. I wasn't aware, sir. I'm sorry, Master Chief. I'm not Master Chief anymore, Elias answered gently. That remained with the uniform when I left it. Ink stayed with me. Hourglass not done just then. Footsteps. A steel door opened. Commander Vance, dressed in full formal whites, stepped in. Reflexively, the entire room snapped to attention. As you were. He didn't acknowledge them. Only looked at Elias. His expression changed completely. Respect. Even admiration. He extended his hand. Elias. Didn't know if you'd actually make it. Told you I would, Elias replied. Commander Vance turned to face the room. His words arrived gently, but hit like a detonation. Gentlemen, you are in the presence of the architect of the survival doctrine you are learning. Before GPS. Before thermal optics. There were men like Elias Thorne, SEAL Team 6, before many of you were even born. Only man I know awarded the Navy Cross twice. A soft gasp moved across the rows. He isn't here to teach you firearms. Vance continued. You already know how to fire. He's here to teach you how to survive when technology quits, and all that remains is your resolve and your brother beside you. He looked at Elias's arms. And I see he's already begun. Commander stepped aside. Elias walked toward the podium, slowly. He looked at Miller. Stand up. Miller rose. Stiff. And don't call me sir. I work for a living, Elias said with a faint smile, a gravity-breaking beat. The room exhaled slightly. He stepped back, voice quiet now, a whisper that pulled everyone in. You asked why I wear so much ink. Pausing. Here's the truth. To hide the pieces that are gone. Every time part of me was lost, I put ink over it so I wouldn't look at the emptiness. You kids are blank pages. My mission is to keep you that way for as long as possible. He took a piece of chalk and drew a vertical line. This is you. He drew an erratic circle around it. This is the world. Survival is not domination. It's making sure this line stays upright while the world tries to bend it. He placed the chalk down. Open your notebooks. Today we learn how to secure water in hostile urban terrain. And if you mention phone apps or filtration systems, I walk out. We're here to talk about staying alive when the world decides you shouldn't. The auditorium felt different now. Moments earlier, it had held self-assured young warriors, each confident in their elite status. Now it contained men sitting still, humbled, attentive, and suddenly aware of the weight they had not yet earned. No one shifted. No one spoke. You could hear the faint buzz of fluorescent lighting. The energy had shifted from competitive tension to reverent silence. Elias didn't carry himself like someone seeking respect. He carried himself like someone who had already paid for it. He paced lightly before continuing. You want to know what survival truly looks like, he said calmly. It isn't a montage. It isn't night vision footage or highlight reels. It is the slow, grinding commitment to stay alive when everything inside you wants to stop. He set his battered notebook on the podium and opened it, not to read, but like a habit. The spine creaked. Waterlogged edges curled up like dried leaves. For 3 hours, you are not students. You are listeners. He began. Hour 1, hunger and thirst. No tactical jargon. No diagrams. He spoke of thirst so intense the tongue shrinks, sticking to the roof of the mouth. Of chewing wet grass in marshland just to ease the dryness. Of gathering condensation from metal structures with shirt fabric at night. He recounted being in Somalia, unable to drink from known water sources due to contamination, using engine coolant tubes from an abandoned vehicle to collect rainfall. He described hunger that made men hallucinate. One soldier attempted to negotiate with a tree, thinking it was a radio operator. Yet they kept quiet, because speaking, even delirium, could betray their location. He paused. You ever tasted metal in your mouth from dehydration? No answer. Pray you don't. Not a single pen scratched paper. They were frozen, absorbing. Hour 2, hiding where no one looks. He continued with stories of concealment. Hiding inside a sewage pipeline in Iraq to evade night patrols. Waist-deep in waste. Rats crawling over legs. Breathing through a tiny crack in the pipe, counting seconds, praying their heartbeat wouldn't echo. You don't hold still because you're brave, he said. You hold still because one cough, one shift, gets the next guy killed. He spoke of moments when fear has no volume, only pressure. He turned, lifted his sleeve briefly. The jagged lines across his arm seemed to shift in shadow. These aren't tattoos, he murmured. They're timestamps of where I decided to continue breathing. Hour 3, the hunt inside the mind. The last hour wasn't about physical survival. It was about the burden. He spoke of what happens when you come home. The restless nights where gunfire echoes in silence. Standing in supermarkets overwhelmed by choices of bottled water after years of scarcity. Watching fireworks and hearing artillery. Smiling at family, but still scanning for exit points. Survival doesn't end when you're extracted, he said softly. It ends when the men beside you stop appearing in nightmares. He looked at them, eyes unwavering. Most of you aren't afraid of dying. But ask yourselves, are you prepared to live after you've earned the right to? Not a sound in the room. That was the lesson. When he finally closed the notebook, it wasn't with finality, more like sealing a compartment. The dismissal bell rang, but nobody moved. Some recruits glanced at each other, hesitant, unsure if it was permissible to stand yet. Their movements were no longer practiced, no longer synchronized. They were a human. Elias calmly gathered his notebook and the empty coffee cup. He turned toward the door. Class dismissed. Still, they didn't rise. Only when he stepped through the doorway did the air shift again. That's when Miller moved. He sprang up with urgency. He didn't seem to control and almost jogged down the aisle. Elias, wait. The old man paused. Turned slightly. Miller stopped just inches away. He wasn't puffed up. His shoulders were lowered, his eyes softer. He swallowed, extended his hand. Thank you. Breath. I'll never assume again. I promise. I won't judge by appearance. Not ever. Elias clasped his hand. The grip was a contradiction, iron strength in a worn body. He pulled Miller in closer, barely an inch. Don't worry about judging the cover, he said quietly. Just write a story that's worth the read. A faint flicker of mischief crossed his eyes. And avoid earning the ink if possible. It stings like hell when it rains. With that, he turned and walked into the sunlight. For a long while, no one spoke. When they finally began to move, it was slow, intentional. Like their limbs had remembered their weight. The recruits looked at one another. At their notebooks, filled now, not with notes on procedures, but with truths that would echo for years. They looked at their bare arms. Skin unmarked. A few rubbed over them unconsciously, as if trying to feel the invisible burden Elias had carried. They walked in believing they were apex predators. They walked out understanding. They were cubs who had crossed paths with the lion. Final words to the audience. Respect isn't loud. The narrator speaks softly. It isn't measured by how many medals you wear or how many people clap when you talk. It's the quiet recognition of pain endured. It's understanding every scar was once an open wound. Every gray hair a chapter paid for in fear. We live in an age that applauds youth, mocks age, and praises noise. But as you've just seen, the quietest man in the room often roared loudest in history. The next time you see an old veteran with faded tattoos or limping past your table, don't look away. Don't belittle. Just nod and say thank you. Because the comfort you enjoy right now, the privilege of pressing play on this story, was purchased in ink and blood by men like him. Military medal if you stand with our veterans. If you honor those who paved the road long before you walked it, hit subscribe. Share this video. Let their legacy keep breathing. See you in the next one. Stay strong.